Hey guys, good evening. Today's January 30th, 2026. This is the Uncommon News Channel, and I'm sure by now you guys have seen the news about Donald Trump's Board of Peace. And if you're a subscriber to my channel, you probably are also a student of prophecy and scripture, so you're already aware that as soon as they say peace, peace, then suddenly destruction comes upon them. So we're going to go ahead and get into some of the ramifications of the current geopolitical positioning in the Middle East and possibly forecast some of the outcomes that could happen based on current events. So what we're seeing right now is the Trump administration basically getting ready to attack Iran. And Iran is threatening to launch retaliations against U.S. military assets in the region. And so what I personally see could happen as a result there is, if Iran does launch a preemptive attack or even a retaliatory attack, I think what we're going to see is Iran primarily focusing on Saudi Arabian assets. And the reason I say that is because well, first of all, they would have pretty much unanimous support from the rest of the Arab world for doing that. It's my opinion, based on what I've seen, that most of the Arab world despises and rejects Saudi Arabia. They hate the fact that Saudi Arabia is whoring herself out, selling oil to, what they would consider to be the kafir, and then not sharing the profits with the rest of the Muslim and Arab community. And so there's a lot of animosity about that. They hate the fact that the Saudis live in luxury and then they live in squalor. And so they would probably celebrate her destruction. Now, if that happens, what we would see is a very big power shift in the region. You would have Turkey come out on top of that because they would pretty much be unscathed. We don't know what Iran would look like after an Israeli and a U.S. strike against it, but I think it's pretty safe to say that after Iran launches an attack on Saudi Arabia is going to pretty much be non-existent. That would be the goal of Iran. And so really the only two powers in the region would be Turkey and Iran, but mostly Turkey. Turkey would definitely be the dominant Arab force, the dominant Muslim force in the region. And coincidentally enough, Turkey was the last empire in the region, so they could very well rebirth their empire. So this would be the rebirth of the last empire, which had a fatal wound, so to speak, right, which appeared to have been destroyed, but could miraculously reemerge. And so, I think Turkey could really take advantage of this. I think they could push all the way up to the Euphrates. I also think if we don't completely annihilate Iran, they could also push all the way up to the Euphrates, and we could see the fulfillment of those two goats butting heads right there at the Euphrates. So that's very, very possible. It could actually happen. And so if it does play out like that, I think you're going to see Turkey go for Cyprus pretty quickly. I think Turkey could also go and expand into Syria, and quite possibly try to invade Israel and they could justify that by what's taking place in Gaza. And they would get a lot. I think they would get a lot of support, not just in the Arab community, but around the world for doing that. And so what we're seeing now is Turkish forces. You have a lot of Turkish assets in northern Africa, a lot of Turkish assets in Syria. They're already expanding, and we're seeing the potential for an attack against Iran and retaliatory attacks against United States assets in the region. And I'm specifically saying that if Iran does decide to retaliate against the United States, I personally think they're going to focus primarily on our assets in Saudi Arabia, and maybe not even our assets, just Saudi Arabia in general. I think we could see all of Saudi Arabia literally obliterated, not just by Iran, but also by the Houthi in the south. I think there could be an all-encompassing attack against Saudi Arabia, and I do think that would fulfill the whore of Babylon, that's riding the beast, turning around and ripping her to shreds, because she's been living in luxury. She's been dining and drinking the blood of the saints, quite literally been persecuting the saints. The one nation that's been persecuting Christians in that region probably the most are the guerrilla fighters that come out of the Wahhabi camps in Saudi Arabia. They literally fulfill prophecy in that manner, quite literally and physically fulfill prophecy in that way. And so I know a lot of you think that United States or Europe could be the next empire or Babylon, so to speak. But when we're looking at the empires that the Bible talked about there, primarily Babylon, the Persian Empire, Greeks, Romans, and then the Ottoman Empire, they all had one thing in common, and it was the area of control that they had, right? Their empire stretched, basically from, the Western Mediterranean, so to speak, western part of the Mediterranean, or I'm sorry, eastern part of the Mediterranean, all the way to like Persia area, all of the Euphrates Valley and Israel and modern day Iraq, parts of Saudi Arabia. So those empires all shared that in common, and a revival of the Ottoman Empire would also encompass that area. So I'm pretty sure when it happens, it's going to be an empire that encompasses the nation of Israel. So anyways, guys, that's just my take on it. Take it for what it is. Hope you guys enjoy the video. If you like what I do here, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, share, comment, subscribe, and as always, don't forget, help out your neighbors.